Good morning. Thanks so much to everyone for making the time to visit us today in the green room. I think we've got to have a fantastic group discussion, in particular around logistics, distribution, warehousing, and how that plays into the wearable space more generally, whether that be AR, VR, XR, as well as various other types of wearable technology. Just by way of introduction, my name is Nawaz Isaji. I'm a co-founder of a company called EWG, the Emerging Workforce Group, and essentially we're an integrator. So we essentially implement innovation. So what that means is that we take all of the great stuff that you see out there and turn that into reality for businesses. So that means all of the integration into the back-end systems, making sure that people are getting the benefits from technology and from innovation that they set out to achieve. You hear some great numbers out there around 30% saving of this and 50% saving on this, and that's really what we try and realize for our clients. I'll let David just quickly introduce himself, and then I think we'll go through and introduce some of the other panel members. I'll pop this over to David just so he can say hello.
Yeah, look, fantastic to be here today. So Nawaz and I, you've probably picked up from our accents, we're from out of town. And so g'day from Australia. So we have travelled a little distance to come visit you, but it's certainly been worth it. It's a fantastic event to be at, so we really appreciate the opportunity to be here and BrainXchange for having us across. What are we doing all the way from Australia to come over here? So from our perspective, we're looking to grow our business in this beautiful country. We keep coming over here to visit you, so we thought it's about time we came over here and expanded what we do, what we've been doing in Australia in the telecommunication space. We're very big in logistics space and other industries. But enough about us. We're here to talk about the panel, so this is not an infomercial on us today. So I might ask the panel to all introduce themselves and do a quick overview of what you've been doing in the AR/VR space. Sure. Just a quick 10 or 20 seconds, and then we'll get into some questions.
Great. Am I on here? Okay. Brandt Wilson. I work for Night Swift Transportation. We're pretty new to the AR/VR space. We do have an Oculus Rift, and we're doing some different trainings around virtual reality, especially around pre-trip inspection. I think I've heard a lot of different inspection stuff out there. It's kind of low-hanging fruit. Initial feedback has been really good. We also came to the Wearables conference, I guess is the third year now, looking at fatigue management stuff. It's obviously a big problem in logistics, or not problem, but concern. We want to make sure our drivers are getting home safe to their families every day. So we've been kind of looking into that stuff as well. We've done a lot of different trials.
Thank you. Robin?
Robin Hensley, UPS, and I have operations technology. And one of the pieces that I have is some of our technology that we use with wearables and with virtual reality training for our drivers and other roles within the centers. And we've had wearables for almost 25 years now.
Early adopter.
Yes.
Fantastic, we'll get into that. Michael?
Hi, Michael Robb, Philip Morris International, also based in Australia from down under. Managing a distribution network across Australia, including eight warehouses and delivering to over 6,000 outlets. We've started on the wearable journey with EWG, using some Google Glass and RealWear to look at our stock taking process and returns.
Vincent.
All right, yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Vinzent Rudtsch. I'm working for Audi Logistics based in Germany, and I'm responsible for our innovation management of our in-house logistics processes. So that covers, of course, a lot of different topics, AR in particular for our, supporting workshops for new warehouses, but also supporting pick-and-place operations, up to VR technologies for also training and planning new facilities. But there's a lot of other technologies that we're also looking into, like AGVs, exoskeletons, and so on. So my task and that of my team is to start with a rough business case do some analysis, do some POCs, and then go over on how to scale it up to our plants worldwide and to support our operations with these new technologies.
Thank you. Patrick.
Patrick Bass, thyssenkrupp, based here in North America, so I look after the businesses here in US, Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico. My background is a mechanics or a systems engineer, mechatronic engineer, and I grew up in the elevator business. Why am I here talking about AR, basically, is what we've focused on, is we've actually done 3 different deployments of HoloLens. Our actually very first deployment was the elevator business here in the US, using it as a tech support-based approach. But we really found that there's more value beyond that, and so we have 2 other deployments. One is using it to measure staircases and integrate into a stair chair business, custom per application stair chair business. It's called HoloLink. It's out on YouTube. You can pull it up. And then the latest one is actually a visual pick and pack. So utilizing it as on the warehouse workers to basically continue as every time, so you scan, you guide, your pick list, everything's done integrated through the HoloLens. And we replaced the scan guns and all the other process steps, paper and so forth with that. And we just finished that implementation and now are working on Microsoft's going to take it to a general application platform, and we're working on wanting to scale that across outside of just the one warehouse where we have it now running, and achieved 20% minimum efficiency improvement per person.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much to all of our panelists for joining us here today. I might actually cast my first question to Michael. Michael, I guess I'm interested in knowing what was the catalyst for you guys getting involved in the wearable space, the AR space, and how have you found that journey to date?
I guess the catalyst was really Philip Morris International's decision to get out of smoke and to offer reduced risk products to its consumers. And the main platform of that is IQOS, so it's a heat not burn tobacco technology, so it doesn't produce any smoke, no tar, and definitely reduces the toxins. What's been great is the FDA has this year approved that to be commercialised in Atlanta, in the United States, and we'll start that in Atlanta. So that's from a global product perspective, and that transformation is then underpinned by 3 pillars. There's the product, there's the external ways of engaging with society at large, and then the internal ways of working. And a part of that internal ways is then trying to become more digital. If you look at our processes and systems, they're very manual and prone to error, rework, and very paper-based, paper-heavy. So we've gone through various initiatives. We've digitised our returns process, and that freed up 80 headcount across the country, utilising our delivery drivers whilst in store to capitalise on that time and space with our customers. We've got some automation of our pick-pack coming with a Swisslog Auto Store, so a $7 million investment there. So what we're trying to do is optimise the back end of our processes so that we can then invest more into the front end where we can have a different, a service differentiation with our trade to our competitors. So the wearable, what we saw as a use case was in our stock takes. We do wall-to-wall cycle counts every day in every warehouse. And what we've done with EWG is utilise the Google Glass to scan the bin location, perform the cycle count, and it avoids the rework, the keying, any errors, it flags to the user, and records the process for auditing purposes. That's been the beginning of our journey.
Beginning of a journey.
Yeah.
Thank you. Robin, a long journey. It's 20 plus years in this game. So maybe you can talk through, rather than maybe some of the recent successes that you've had, but also I'm really interested to understand how you've got through any of the barriers to change in the business, because we've all got our challenges internally in our organisation. So if you'd like to share some of that, please.
I would say the recent successes have been around the wearable imprinter that allows one person to do basically 3 jobs. Scan, imprint the label, and then sort, all at the same time and very, very quickly. And we're looking at other technologies to do this, more other wearables and some more sensor type work to do this and make it more efficient. And other successes were looking at the audio wearable so that you would actually be able to scan and then hear where you need to sort. And there was some thoughts that might not work because we're in an environment that's very noisy, and you really need to only have one earpiece in. For safety reasons, you need to not have the other earpiece in. So you are hearing a lot of noise and potentially something that would be safety related that you have to hear while at the same time you're listening to your instruction. So there's thoughts that maybe this wouldn't work. It works great. So it goes back to just rolling it out and see how people are doing it.
And did you find, was there any pushback in the business when you're looking to implement this sort of change? Is there anything that you found that you had to do to get the success in the business?
There's a perception that, it's new and it's technology and, we're in warehouses and we're in these, centers that are, pretty basic. It's like, really, can we really, pull this off? And the technology teams, you've come in before, you've implemented all this technology, sometimes it didn't work, so you always throw out the failure, that didn't work. But at the end of the day, this technology that we're using today has been extremely successful because there really is no training. You put it in your ear, and then you just start doing it. It says, and it just tells you what to do.
Trailblazing. Yeah.
So, but it's been a journey.
Yeah.
That wasn't the first trial.
Sure.
Other trials that, were the failures were the ones that people will talk to you about and say, it was a failure.
All right, we'll come back to you and some of those successes in a moment. I might just ask Patrick to talk to a couple of the implementations that you've done and where the journey that you've gone on in the organisation. It'd be really great to hear from you.
It has been a journey. We started on the IoT side with actually our elevator business deploying here in the US, where we're streaming data to do predictive and preemptive maintenance. Through that, we got introduced to HoloLens as being a partner with Microsoft, and we immediately seen it. We said we want this device immediately. It wasn't so easy in the beginning. We took the first production 50 headsets. Actually, I have a colleague in the crowd here that's with our ITS Technical Center based here in Dallas that we use as the hub to interface that tech support with. And the issue of bringing the change management of the people wearing devices is one thing. Quite honestly, we haven't found that to be so difficult because what we've done, each time we've done a bigger project, is we immediately take the domain experts and they actually are embedded in the project from day one, even from the concept. And you basically convert them, even you basically take your biggest anti-person and then your biggest energetic person, put them both in the project and make them your digital champions and call them domain experts. Label it right up front.
They buy in straight up.
Yeah. And then the other side is, don't get wrapped up. This is not an R&D project. This is not an IT project. These are operations. This is in the heart of your business and operations. And if it's not, by the way, you're not doing it right. It has to be in the heart of the operations, and the operations group need to drive it because they're going to live with it. And if you don't do that, we tried remote monitoring, is what we called it then, instead of IoT, twice. One of the projects I actually was lead on, and it failed miserably. And we put 40,000 devices out there that are still sitting out there doing nothing. We learned from that to do it different. Sure. You have to go back to your business model. You have to go back, what are you trying to solve? What are you trying to take from analog to digital? And just because you do it digital, that's not the win, which a lot of the group will say, we're there, we're finished. Nah, forget it, that's nothing. Now you have to integrate and digitalize it to where it's one source, one truth, real time, employee empowering. And if it doesn't meet that 4 criteria, you've done it wrong.
Yep.
And we've learned that the hard way a few times, but we've had some great success now in how we've sped up the process over the last 5 years.
Thank you. Vinzent, let's talk a little bit about Audi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, in the beginning, we started heavily on, let's say, analyze the users, how are they working, and especially for in-house logistics processes, I mean, there's a lot of sequencing. I mean, imagine that there's like, we have in Germany 3 assembly lines with a takt time of 90 seconds. So that means basically every 30 seconds, one car gets produced, gets out of the factory. And these cars are very individual. I mean, those cars are not the same. They have different, I don't know, infotainment systems. One has like a glass ceiling, the other does not. Next one needs a steering wheel with red leather stitches and so on. So very individual, and these logistics people, they have to have a high rotation. They have to really get every 30 seconds the right part to the assembly line. And they were not really happy with our current list-based systems on paper, on tablet, or with the voice systems, and we were looking to support them in the operational way. And we're very much focused in the beginning on this display technology, like, okay, how do we present the information to them in the most efficient way? And so that's why we were looking at maybe the HoloLens, also the Google Glass applications. And in the end, we did notice a bit like, okay, people, for example, when they do some picking, they do not so much information as maybe we anticipated in the beginning. For example, we had some 3D models and processes displayed for them on the HoloLens. And in the end, they said, okay, it was very nice to see, but it kind of distracted me from what I actually needed to see, just the shelf number or something like that. So that's when we noticed, okay, the people who are doing the job every day, they only need the essential information displayed to them. And that was definitely one lesson learned in the beginning. Okay, how much information do the people need? How do they need it in the best way? And what's the right technology for them in that case?
I'd like to add something to that if I could.
Sure.
One of the things, we made a discovery by accident with HoloLens that it's really significant to that point. Mm-hmm. Different people trigger in different ways. Some trigger audibly, some trigger visibly. Allow them to have that selection. Don't force it's only going to be provided, this data is only going to be provided in this way. We went through gamification with the HoloLens application, and what the discovery was, through this, the Google Glass is not as much, but with the HoloLens, you can drive behavior substantially. You can take two people that do things completely different and make them do exactly the same, but they'll do it exactly the same through different interfaces in different ways. And that's was a huge, powerful discovery that we found. From a safety, we spend now more time in ergonomics of how the data is going to allow you to work in a 3D world.
Yep.
But it's a complete different format
Letting
of
the
thinking
people
because you're
pull
used to
through.
2D world,
Yeah.
right? So,
Fantastic. Brandt, I wanted to talk, take a slightly different turn and talk safety for a minute. So from your perspective, you've been on a safety journey on a wearable path, but you ended up in a non-wearable solution. So I thought that would be useful for you to share the safety journey that you've been on with the team.
Sure, kind of specifically around fatigue stuff. For us, we're a little different, right? We've got 20,000 trucks, so we've got a lot of drivers out there, and obviously making sure that they get home to their families every night or not every night, right? But just get home safely is really important to us. So we just kind of set out to see what we could do on the fatigue side, and in our ideal world, I had 4 years ago, I'd come to a conference like this, and we were hoping to find this magic ring or watch that basically told us when a driver was tired, and we could reach out and send an alert or something and make sure they got home safely. Now, to my knowledge, if someone has something out there, please see me after this. It doesn't really exist. There's some great technology out there that we've tested that will let you know when measure sleep, and with pretty cool algorithms will tell you, hey, this is the most dangerous time for this person to be tired. Well, when you've got 20,000 drivers, it's not really possible business-wise to reach out to every one of them at that time. So those technologies didn't really work for us. They were also very expensive as per month, per driver. So the ROI just wasn't there, wasn't doing what we needed. We've tried some smart caps, which were really cool technology. Again, one of the challenges there is you got to make sure someone's wearing a hat the whole time. That's a challenge, as well as the cost. So right now what we're trying is infrared sensors, actually. So it's similar to a camera, but it's just an infrared sensor that points inward at the driver and looks at their pupils and their eyes and their head movement and all of those things. And we've had some really good results. So we're still kind of in the middle of testing, but right now it looks like we've found something that will at least help there. Yeah. So on the logistics side, for anyone that's moving trucks or anything, this company is also working with tractors and lots of other things. Seems pretty promising.
And I'm interested in some of the, I won't call them incidental benefits, but maybe non-financial benefits that you guys are seeing from the wearable technology, whether that be safety, ergonomics, just easier ways of working. Are there incidental benefits that maybe don't go to the economics of the problem that we're trying to solve for that you guys are seeing? And I'll open up to the entire panel.
I'd like to start with that by saying retention. And engagement of employees and the demographics of our employees that we're hiring. And really what I find so fascinating is, like we talk, like I have a smart logistics network, and I'm not the first person to say this, take the work out of network. I think it was Nobel actually that originally said that a long time ago, but it still resonates with me about thinking about making work more fun. We go there every day, and you have a job to do, and sometimes the job is just, every day the same. But with the gamification pieces of it, your buddy's next to you, and, you see if you can do it faster or better. I think that's really fascinating, what this technology is bringing to us.
Yeah, I would also say we had, on a much smaller scale, like I said, we were kind of doing some virtual reality pre-trip training stuff, and during that training, the first couple of weeks as we rolled it out, we were really good at surveys, and almost every driver at the end of the training said, what did you enjoy most from the training? All of them was the virtual reality pre-trip, and it was, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, such a small part of the last 4 or 5 days that they had done, but that's what stuck out. So especially in the full truckload industry, retention's a huge problem. So anything that jumps out and grabs, there's a lot of value attached to that.
Well, in our case, I would say it's mainly the communication that's really one critical factor, because what we usually have is when we have new models, new factories opening up, then there's some heavy rescheduling, redesign of layouts and so on, and oftentimes we have all the production process planners coming in a meeting in some kind of empty area where the new layout is going to be facilitated.
Sure.
And they're talking about completely different things. They have all some kind of layout in their mind. They have some critical areas that they are talking about, and one thing that we are doing now is really supporting these workshops with 4 or 5 people using the HoloLens, and then they are all basically looking at the same information. And this is something that impressively boosts the whole communication in the team. There's so many, so fewer misunderstandings when the people are talking, because everyone gathers around one zone and everyone sees the same position. They see some kind of critical collision with something on the ceiling and so on. So in the end, of course, you can also convert that into numbers. This is some fewer iteration cycles and so on.
Sure.
But we really find that very hard to express that in a business case. But everyone says, okay, our meetings have become so much more productive on the shop floor.
And is that a technology that can be used remotely? So could someone be using that in another part of Germany or another part of the world and be part of that session?
Definitely, yeah. Okay. That is definitely one thing. In the end, it's still a question of how good does it work. The reality today is oftentimes in our typical Skype calls, someone gets kicked out and you don't hear them and so
Sure.
on. This is the present, but it is definitely, the technology is there, and in 3 or 4 years, I don't think we'll talk about these technical issues anymore.
I think removing friction in the process is important as well, because if people, their daily work life, if there's friction in that process, it's taking energy from that person, and it's reducing the quality of the decisions that they're making. So if you can take away that burden by capitalising on the benefits of technology, they can make a better decision in a less stressed state, and that just contributes to the overall quality of the process.
One thing I was thinking through as we've been here this last couple of days is, if there are any real bottlenecks to this technology being used more broadly, and by that I mean I think it's really relevant, particularly for the panel here, as there are people that do distribution on a fairly significant scale, connectivity and making sure that you can interact with these devices over large distances, using 4G technology. Has that been an issue? And I'll direct my question to the guys at the end.
Yeah, no, not really for us. Most of our business is all in the United States, a little bit of Mexico and Canada, so we have pretty good connectivity everywhere. Most of our devices catch back up pretty quickly. There's definitely some places, I can think of one in New Mexico, where, you just don't have connectivity. But honestly, it hasn't been a huge problem for us. We have tablets in all of our trucks, and we pretty much have constant connectivity. So.
And we're the same, that we have good connectivity, Wi-Fi, and then of course where we don't, we might use telematics. But I would have some places, I would say my automotive shops. Okay. So typically the automotive shop will be next to a center, and they'll share the Wi-Fi. I have a couple of places where they're fairly spread apart. And then it was a little surprising that they need a little more help, with the Wi-Fi. So as we brought in more and more devices, there was like, okay, we really need to upgrade. So, but I think that's natural. Over time we would be upgrading all of the areas.
Sorry, we're sharing microphones. I apologize.
A question for you, Robin, from my perspective. I'm interested to look forward. We've talked a little bit about what you've done so far, but you've been on the journey, and there's, I guess, some advice for people here who have started the journey. But what's the future? What can you share? Where you think it's going to go, and what's next, and what should we be thinking about? Because it's easy to look in the rear vision mirror. It's my trucking joke for you. And but looking forward, where do we go?
Well, there's so much opportunity, and actually I'm learning from all of you and the vendors here, and looking at what the capabilities are with eyewear. Of course, we were talking about that before. I'm looking at the use cases that are, I think they work very well in environments that you can control, and I've got a lot of good feedback there. I'm in areas that do not have control. You're either inside, outside, the weather may be raining, it could be different. You could have a driver safety issues are huge. If I'm wearing something that could in any way inhibit my movement or my sight. Now on the other hand, I'm going to turn that upside down. What if you had something that wasn't the opposite of an inhibitor? Right now I can only see a certain level of peripheral vision and in front of me, and of course I'm scanning my mirrors, and we do methods to make sure that you're constantly scanning and you're looking far away as well as close. And that's the gamification, right? Yeah. I get all of my hazards near me, but I missed all of my hazards, in front of me, like farther away. So, you learn those methods. But what if you had a device that gave you full vision? So, I'm looking for those future opportunities. Yeah. I think there's some things that will make a huge difference to all of us.
It's going to lead.
Now, we say that your mother can see in the eyes in the back of her head. Okay, she really will have eyes in the back of her head. So just beware.
Patrick's the CEO of a very large business. Talk us through, you're a sponsor, you're driving this in your organisation. I'm really interested in your perspective from a business. Where does this take your business? You do see as competitive edge for your organisation? Where is it going? What's the journey?
So for us, we early on we're into getting the devices in, putting them in the R&D centers, and looking for the different ways to apply it in incremental improvement and so forth. And coming from the R&D side of the innovation side, that's the natural process. And what we really had to learn and realize is that's not going to get it done. You really need to go back and approach it from a different way. And so that's what we've really, the last 4 years in the role that I'm in now, I probably spend more time on innovation and driving it on a CEO level than most, simply because we look at the different technologies are out there. They're just enablers, right? But incremental improvement is not going to get it. We're in businesses now that automotive component supply and logistics supply, it's getting heavily commoditized. You're losing more and more control of your value chain to be able to make your shareholders happy at the end of the day. and your customer's happy. So we've really tried to go back to say, okay, what's the business model? What's our anchor point in that business model? What's our differentiator? And how can we disrupt that with these technologies? What's the problem we're trying to solve? I mean, we got into the idea of doing something on the warehouse with HoloLens simply on the basis that we had businesses growing. We weren't big enough in those businesses to automate the warehouse, such as an Amazon or UPS and so on. We've actually, thank you again, we've actually done some work with UPS and did some exchange and data exchange with my strategy team. But there's a lot of things we couldn't afford to do that. So how do we fix the fact that we're locked into a human capital equation and we can no longer keep up with our business scale from a sales potential because of the human capital? How do we solve that? And that's where it started. Where it took off is realizing to say, okay, when you solve that problem, to really afford the whole solution, it has to be integrated to your business model. I mean, warehouse distribution business model is pretty simple. The faster it comes in, the least amount of times you touch it, the faster it goes out, the more money you make. That's simple. It has to be 100% correct. Any 10th percent it's not correct, costs you money like hell. So it's very simple, but be true to that, of solve the problem and make sure it fits into all of that. And through the journey as well, we've really focused on, you get into the words, right? We've been, the company's conferences, you hear digitalization, digital transformation. What the hell does that mean? So we spent a lot of time in our company actually, what does that mean? And tell everybody. And be true to it, because there's too much buzz out there. And so
make it real.
It comes back to driving behavior. And don't, I love, Robin, your point. And we always think about what it's impeding. Well, if you're actually controlling the behavior of the person, do you worry about the impediment? You have to flip it around, and it's extremely powerful. And by the way, people are you don't have to do ergonomic studies. People are going to tell you. Watch the behaviors, and they're also going to tell you. We've been able to eliminate in the warehouse how they were actually having one kind of repetitive motion injury in the prior system, in the prior process. And we kind of said, I wonder if that could be different with the HoloLens. Completely eliminated it. Because how that's interfacing, you're working in this 3D world, no longer in a 2D. I mean, we work in a 3D world, we do, but everything else we've done device process-wise is not a 3D world. Now you are. You can hugely control the behavior of the individual and what they're doing through those placements of data, dots, guidance, audibly. Extremely powerful.
Thank you. Michael, just wondering if you want to talk a little bit about the future of your distribution centre and some of the changes you're looking to make.
Yeah, I think by bringing all of this together, it's sort of the challenge for us because we're on the beginning of this journey. There's so much fruit on the tree to pick. It's sort of where do you start, which has actually been the way we've started. We've sort of scattered, and it appears chaotic. But what's really interesting is it's coming together to really streamline the business, and we've been able to, for example, in one of our warehouses, remove areas completely, which has then had flow-on impacts to our working capital. It's improved our customer experience at the delivery point. It's removed wasted time by the drivers, and the positive feedback coming through. We're actually getting compliments through our customer service team now, not complaints. So that's been an interesting journey just from experimenting with a bit of different process and tech.
I'm keeping an eye on the time, and I think one thing that I see a lot of faces around the room, particularly some that may be new to wearable technology and AR and VR. I'd like to get some advice from the panel as to what's the best way to get started? Do you buy technology and just hope for the best? Do you work with your business internally and come up with an idea of a problem you want to solve? And how do you work through that? Happy to hand it over to anyone on that.
I can tell you what we went through because, our first interface with HoloLens, myself as the head of R&D and our CEO basically looked at it and said, we got to have this because we know we can do things with it. Mm-hmm. So how do we want to deploy it? Well, we basically put a DevOps kit of a HoloLens in multiple centers and just turn them loose. What can you do with it? And that kind of generated the idea flow. But one of the most interesting things, we actually took some of the simulations that Microsoft had.
Sure.
And we had everybody that said, oh, I can't imagine you could do this, or I couldn't do. We literally spent a ton of time taking a device to anyone that wanted to or anyone that didn't think it would work and put it on them and have them do a simulation. And it radically changed everyone's buy-in to say this thing could do more. Mm-hmm. And then, but don't get crazy in all the little ideas. Go back to the process, and that's where I had the strategy team separate.
Sure.
Go in and map every business for the business model, their anchor point, their differentiation point, and then start talking about how we could disrupt that now in the basis of a transformation. Because to just take something to digital, okay, so what? I mean, if you haven't already done that, you're kind of in trouble anyways. Digitalizing it, what is the one source, one truth, real time, and employee empowering? And I see things one source, one truth, so to say, but not real time. People think real time is, well, I can print a report and take it to the meeting. That's not real. That's not real time. That's not employee empowering. You printed something that's now passed. And so it's taking that journey, putting the definitions around that, driving that behavior. You can get carried away for tech, and I see it a ton out there. You can't afford it.
Sure.
Tie it to the business model. What's the value? What's the value outcome? Efficiencies by themselves typically isn't get the outcome. We get caught up in that too many times, I think.
I completely agree with you on that point, because yesterday we had some discussions that were turning around this discussion, like don't start with the hammer looking for a nail, but start with the business problem. And obviously this is definitely an important process to start with the problem and then look for the right solution. But I also had the experience that you need the other way around to boost the creativity. Sometimes you have to start with the tech, give it to the people, and just let them be creative. And
sure.
I don't know if it was Henry Ford or someone saying that if he'd asked his customers what do they want, he would have ended up with faster horse wagons or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think both ways are the right way to start. Sometimes you have a problem and look for the right technology that'll solve this problem, but sometimes you just start with the technology, give it to the people, and let them be creative with it.
And
Create the energy.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
That's the balance.
Yeah.
Energy is the problem.
Do you guys do brainstorming sessions around this technology? You give it to people and then you say, okay, well, let's get in a room and talk about what this can do. Is that something that you guys have done?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Our center here in Dallas actually is one of them.
Okay.
And so we did it through R&D, but we also did it in the tech side, the operations side. I mean, we
Sure.
kind of planted them around. I actually we actually did HoloLens demos in our regional management meeting. So I had 400 leaders in there because a bunch of them were naysayers. And I said, here's your chance.
Yeah.
Microsoft presented, spoke, we talked through it, and then said, anybody that wants to come up here and do it. Our global CEO, when I first was pushing HoloLens, our global CEO said, this is too early, kind of pie in the sky. He couldn't get behind it. So I literally, relentlessly, every day bothered him until I finally got him in 4 weeks later to go with me to do a simulation. He put it on, he came out of there, he said, let's go, I'm ready. It's amazing the change. It's dramatic. I mean, Google glasses is one thing, and smart glasses is one thing. The HoloLens experience, once you put that on and do that, it completely gives you a whole different context of the world. And I've not had one person yet do it that didn't have that same aha. Not one. So get it out there.
I would echo that even a little bit as well. I'm in a different situation. I'm the director of innovation. At the time we started, I was a business analyst. And the CEO and my executive vice president approached me and said, hey, we're kind of interested in this. We don't know anything about it. Trucking is a legacy industry. It's been around for a while. And we're very fragmented as far as we've got terminals all over the country, and that's where the operations is happening, right?
Sure.
So we weren't going to have the opportunity we don't have a research center. We weren't going to have the opportunity of, here's a bunch of technology, go play with it, right?
I guess you're the research center, right?
Right. Our IT department's keeping the lights on, essentially, right? So this whole innovation wave is a little new. So I really liked the find the nail. We found a really small nail that had big impact, though, if that makes sense. So we could, a pre-trip inspection, every single driver, all 20,000 has to do it every single day. And when you're training them in 60 different terminals, I'm going to guarantee you right now that it's not done consistently, right? You're going to have a different instructor in every one of those places. So it just checked a lot of boxes, but we had the exact same experience. Just the cost and everything, everyone was pretty hesitant about it. As soon as the CEO, as soon as the CFO put it on their head, they were like, okay, let's go to the next thing. And so now we're at that stage where now they're coming and saying, what else can we do, right? Now let's explore. Now we have a budget to explore and kind of get creative, right? So I think it's probably different in a lot of industries or businesses depending on where you're coming at it. But if you can prove a smaller business case that works really well, it gives you the opportunity to get the right people to put it on. And it's like you said, it's very hard to say no at that point because it just works.
I'd like to add one thing to this because we do all of this. We have the labs and we have all these things that happen, which is wonderful. But one thing that's been very successful is our intern program. So you bring in these interns and then you give them, and it could be a hammer. Here's some stuff, here's toys, like what do you want to do? And they come up with some amazing creative solutions in a very short period of time. And we have them like less than 3 months. And they present to the CIO at the end of it, and we tier them up, and some of them win, and even we did a virtual assistant. This was probably 3 years ago or so, when virtual assistants were just kind of like coming out. It's like, really, does anybody really want to call to ask their Alexa, do you have any packages coming? Well, it turns out that they just wrote this thing, and people kind of liked it, and we deployed it. So, thank you, intern, 3-month project.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for everyone's time today. I believe that is our time for today, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure our panel members will be happy to mingle for a few minutes if you guys do have any questions that you want to ask to them one-on-one or potentially one-on-two. So please feel free to come up, and we'll be here at the front of the stage to field any questions today. Can I just ask for a round of applause for our panel members today?